and they've just all but accepted that there's no political change coming their way. For whatever reason, for those who are able to look past the politics if their lives are not inherently political. So this is very much so white privilege. Like, I know we're bringing back white privilege for a second just to like make a point, but if you're able
I'll give you a minute to make that point.
You'll give me a minute to make the point?
I said I'll give you a minute to make your white supremacist point. Let's hear it. I'm just breaking your chops.
Well, I mean, I think that white supremacy is just kind of like embedded in every single facet of our institutions, that people don't even realize just how much they are benefiting from systems of white supremacy. Like, people who grew up in the suburbs, who went to a good school, who were able to go to college and move back into the suburbs, they're benefiting from racism and white supremacy. Whether they realize it or not, they're benefiting from the legacy of redlining and historical racist housing policies.
Sure.
You know, the color line still very much exists, and people just don't want to say, no, I got here from my own hard work. Like, yeah, you might have worked hard because capitalism is a competitive system that requires blood, sweat, and tears. So you might have had to sweat a little bit to get where you are, but you didn't have to work nearly as hard as those who are born literally in the trenches. And so if you are able to bitch about how, yeah, maybe you're paying 50% of your rent right now, that fucking sucks, dude. I feel sorry for you. And your complaints are valid. But if you are still able to turn the news off and just hunker down and be a little miserable and make some changes, sacrifices in your own budget, then you are still in a better position than those who have to constantly be made aware of what is happening because their lives are inherently political. If they are not white, if they're not men, so even the white girlies, like, you know, you still got to keep an eye out. You got to look behind your back every now and again. You do not have the luxury of just turning off the news. You know? And so I do always try to be cognizant of that fact because it's not fair.
As a white man who has had multiple careers and also has lived in real poverty. I mean, I lived in a room with a mattress on the floor and a folding chair to put my computer to do work. And this is when I lived in the Bronx, and I lived there for 2 years. I do believe that there's a huge difference between being born into abject poverty than to slipping into it, much like being born into Zionism and just believing in the forever victimhood of Zionism. But I also believe that the system is designed in a way where the elements of racism rises to the surface, and you're convinced that that's the reason why things are happening the way that they're happening. But the truth is, we live in a system that doesn't want the average person to know what it takes to actually succeed, especially in this broken system. We have changed so many things dramatically for the worse. Vocational schools, job training, arithmetic, homework, those things don't exist anymore. And if they do, they typically exist at private institutions or charter schools that normally are private anyway. And for what purpose? Because the class war is real. That, in many ways, is the foundation of Trump's big, beautiful bill. Everything is about continuing to create more of an austerity-like system where people will never fight back and are going to accept the small crumbs in life that they are given, which is why it is so much easier to just pick on the immigrants, for example. It's not about actually solving the problem. If the goal was to close the border, but at the same time, deal with the real problem and why we have a border crisis. Why are so many people coming to this country? Because people in levels of desperation will work for pennies on the dollar because that's all that's there for them. And the multinational corporations, that's what they want. They would have slavery if they could get away with it. And if you can't have slavery, what's the next best thing? Pay poverty wages. Because in the end, it's all about profit. This is a clip that was taken either yesterday or the day before from a construction worker who was a Trump supporter, regarding the immigration crisis and the economic crisis, the housing crisis. It's all interrelated.
I know I'm going to get a lot of hate over this, and I really don't give a fuck. But the point is, I've been doing construction work pretty much my entire adult life, over 20 years, 21, 22 years now. Right now on this job I'm on, right now, there are about 5 of us white guys out here. There's probably 2 or 3 black guys, and the rest are Latinos. And I say the rest being 100 to 125 guys. Now I've been on this job for 6 months. And that's been about the average. I wished all these guys would get their citizenship and do things legal, but the point is they haven't. But if you send all these guys back across the border, everybody says, oh, they're going to raise the wages and all the white guys are going to get these jobs. Bullshit. Like, I don't know what fucking sandcastle you got your head shoved in, or whose ass you got your head shoved in, but no, they're not. I've watched the Americans completely quit working. People my age and younger don't work. They don't, and especially ain't gonna do a physical job. So all you people saying, oh, they're gonna increase the wage, and all these thousands and thousands of white guys are gonna get these jobs. Like, have you done lost your fucking mind? I mean, come on. What's gonna happen? People like me are gonna be sitting at the house because there ain't even enough people to put a crew together to be able to fucking work. Fuck, man, this country and government, everybody just went to fucking shit, man. Damn, y'all keep working, baby.
I mean, I think that sums it up pretty well. And then you think about the primary issue that you've been fighting on, which is housing, and how very little of that changes. And I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, I'm dealing with a project right now that involves undoing Section 8 housing and bringing it to market rent housing, because this Section 8 property was placed in a neighborhood surrounded by single family homes in a nice middle class area. But I see what these communities turn into. And when we were going through about a dozen apartments on this property, I can't imagine getting to a point where people could just live like animals, because that's what it was. It was the most disgusting, putrid form of living that would make anybody sick. But I will tell you, this system breaks people. And I think people get to a point where they just don't care. They give up. They don't know. They don't want to try. And in many ways, I think it stems from the fact, and this relates to the housing crisis. So many people want to be able to live, but how can they when their economic opportunities are far and few between, and the ones that are there are ones that will not pay them enough to live close enough to where they're working? It's that trap that so many people are stuck in. You're in the heart of it. You're in Los Angeles. And there are people that are, I don't know how bad it is compared to yesteryear, because I think that the industry has changed in a lot of ways. But when you think about how desperate some people are to be in film and TV, and the fact that they are willing to pay an arm and a leg to live in a 400 square foot apartment in West Hollywood or Van Nuys or Whittier or Reseda, it doesn't matter. They're willing to do it. And the corporate landlords are all the more willing and able to make them pay that amount. This level of desperation is beyond sustainable. It's been that way for a long time. And one of the worst parts about California in particular is the fact that the ability to travel is impossible. There is no mass transit in California. Everything is by car. I was just there, as you know, traveling from Los Angeles to San Diego. And this is on the weekend, not even on a weekday. This is on a weekend when people are not working.
Oh, it's busy on the weekend for sure.
You want to put a bullet in your head. You're like, how can the traffic be this bad? And then you realize that it's kind of designed to be bad. It's designed to make you nuts. People that have the ways and the means that control everything, I think they enjoy watching people suffer. I think there is some type of a sadomasochistic enjoyment that they take watching the plebs crawl over broken glass to survive. And all the while, they're enjoying their time at the top. I think there's something to that. Am I wrong? Is that in part why the housing crisis?
I think you're just kind of talking about Elon Musk comes to mind, because he was able to really halt a plan to build mass transportation that would be offering connectivity from multiple cities in Southern California, because he wanted to build the Hyperloop. He literally was able to halt plans altogether to throw his bid in to replace public mass transportation with, and they are building, or they were building, I don't know, the infrastructure bill money that was going toward building like a rapid high-speed train between LA and Vegas. That's in the works, but I'm not even sure if that's even feasible at this point, or if there is some sort of temporary stall that will make it, impossible to actually get the job done because of tariffs and what have you.
All I know is that it's very difficult to come up for air, and everybody's...
Yeah, we're all drowning.
Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, no matter how successful I may become in what I'm doing, I will never get out of the austerity mindset. It's too deeply buried in my psyche. I think about every meal that I eat and that I enjoy it, because I don't know where the next one might be. Anytime I can have really good
Damn,
pizza.
those 2 years in Bronx really did something to you, Pete.
Oh, you kidding? Let me tell you,
No.
When I was desperate, and I mean really desperate, my meal for dinner, especially when I was living in the Bronx, usually involved, as much as I hate to say this is going back a number of years, but I had like $2 or $3 to spend. And I would get a double hamburger and a McChicken sandwich from the dollar menu at McDonald's. And I would stack them together. And I would have a big sandwich. And I would eat that shit at least a handful of times a week. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And yet there are people who get to a level of success where they think, oh, well, that's their problem. I had to go through it. You have to go through it too. When you think about the selfish bastards in this country who think, I paid into Medicare and now I'm going to get mine, knowing that they don't know jack shit about how Medicare actually works. This whole idea that we pay into it and then it comes back to us. No, the government provides it and then we get taxed. That's how it works. Learn modern monetary theory, because that's actually what it is. You don't have to agree with all the plans of how we make it work, but the facts are the facts. And so with the little money I had, I would eat the type of food that I am grateful enough today that I don't have to eat anymore. But there's a lot of people who don't have any other choice.
Well, I saw this today that I guess when you order McDonald's from like a food app, the cost of one hash brown is $4.19. So, people now don't even have the money to buy a McChicken double sandwich because it's not an affordable option anymore. I mean, I don't know how people are making it. I more power to those individuals who are working multiple jobs, who are probably doing the DoorDash to deliver the $4.19 hash browns to people. I have so much respect for your common worker who's just doing everything that they can to survive. And I try to be really mindful of how, the amount of time that must go toward just exhausting yourself to work multiple jobs to keep a roof over your head. I mean, it's not lost on me that many people maybe would be part of something that required boots on the ground, coalition building, getting out on the street if, their livelihood didn't depend on it from having to work that second or third job. You know what I mean? And I know that there's talks of a general strike, and who knows if that'll happen. But, it's just people are just right now forced to work themselves into the ground, that even when the Republicans come in and they just, chip away at you a little more with this big, beautiful bill, that's, we've seen the numbers. When the neoliberals are spinning the numbers and saying, hey, obviously this is going to disproportionately harm the poorest people, they're going to be the ones who are paying more at the end of the day. Look at all of the tax benefits and the incentives for people making $450,000 or more a year. Look what they're getting back. I mean, it's just so blatantly obvious what is happening. And we don't have the means to fight back because we're too busy just trying to, keep ourselves from experiencing homelessness or going bankrupt.